Ava Collins thought she was delivering takeout. She didn't know the order had been placed by men who never planned to eat it. The crying started before she even reached the door. Sharp, panicked, desperate. Two voices. Too small. Too scared. She followed the sound behind the warehouse and froze. A man lay slumped against a bullet-scarred SUV, blood pooling beneath him. One trembling hand gripping a pistol, the other wrapped protectively around two infant car seats. When he looked up at her, his eyes were already fading. "Go," he whispered. "Please." Ava didn't move, because the babies were turning blue. She had seconds to decide. Run and live, or stay and possibly die. What she didn't know was that this man wasn't just wounded, he was hunted. And the twins weren't just children. They were the last pieces of a criminal empire that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. By sunrise, Ava would be lying to police, performing surgery on a kitchen floor, and realizing the delivery was never about food. It was about bait. And she was already hooked. The tip should have been her first warning. $50 for Chinese food at 11:47 p.m. Nobody tips that much unless they're drunk, guilty, or desperate. Ava had been driving for Grubhub across Brooklyn and Queens for 8 months, and she'd learned to read the patterns. High tips near the Navy Yard usually meant tech workers pulling all-nighters, or couples too stoned to cook. This felt different. The address led her to a shuttered textile warehouse off Flushing Avenue, the kind of building that looked abandoned until you noticed the fresh tire marks cutting through the gravel lot. No lights, no movement, just industrial silence pressing against the December cold. Ava sat in her Honda Civic, engine running, finger hovering over the cancel delivery button. That's when she heard it. Crying. Not one voice, but two. Layered and desperate, in a way that made her chest tighten. She killed the engine. Her EMT training had taught her to assess scenes before entering. Check for hazards. Look for exits. Never assume safety. She'd carried those lessons into every shift, even after she quit the ambulance, even after watching her partner bleed out on a Harlem sidewalk, while backup took 11 minutes to arrive. But those cries weren't stopping. Ava grabbed her phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped into the December wind. Her breath clouded as she moved past the warehouse's loading dock, following the sound around the corner, where sodium lights barely reached. That's when she saw him. An Asian man in an expensive dark suit, back pressed against a black SUV that looked like it had been used for target practice. Bullet holes spiderwebbed across the driver's side door and windows. Blood, so much blood, soaked through his white dress shirt and pooled on the asphalt beneath him. But it was his arms that stopped her heart. 2 infant carriers, impossibly small. The babies inside them squirming weakly, their cries thin and ragged, their lips tinged blue in the cold. And in his right hand, a gun, pointed directly at her chest. "I said leave." The man's voice was barely a whisper, but the gun didn't waver. Even dying, his aim was steady, professional. Ava's hands went up instinctively, her phone's flashlight cutting wild angles across the scene. She should have run. Every survival instinct screamed at her to turn around, get in her car, and pretend she'd never seen any of this. But the babies were still crying, and their lips were getting bluer. "You're bleeding out," Ava said, forcing her voice steady. "And those children are going into hypothermic shock, so either shoot me or let me help, because I'm not leaving them to die." She expected him to pull the trigger. Instead, his gun hand started shaking. Not from fear, from blood loss. His eyes, dark and fierce even through the pain, locked onto hers with an intensity that made her feel weighed and measured in a single heartbeat. "You don't know what you're stepping into," he managed. "I know hypothermia. I know GSWs. I know you've got maybe 20 minutes before you lose consciousness, and those babies have less." She took a step closer. "I used to be an EMT. Let me see the wound." "No hospitals." "I didn't say hospital. I said let me see it." For a long moment, the only sound was the baby's weakening cries and the distant hum of traffic on the BQE. Then, slowly, painfully, he lowered the gun. Ava moved fast. She dropped to her knees beside him, ignoring the cold asphalt biting through her jeans, and pulled open his suit jacket. The bullet had entered below his rib cage, right side. No exit wound. The blood flow was steady, but not arterial. He'd been lucky. Sort of. "How long ago?" 40 minutes. His accent was faint, but present. Korean, maybe. Maybe more. She pressed her hoodie against the wound, watching his face contort with pain. "The babies, are they hurt?" "No. Just cold. Formula's in the SUV. Couldn't reach it." Ava glanced at the vehicle. The back door was open, revealing 2 more car seats and a diaper bag that had spilled across the leather interior. Whoever had shot at this SUV had been thorough. The passenger window was completely gone, glass glittering like ice across the seats. "What's your name?" she asked, applying pressure. "Does it matter?" "Probably not." She looked at the babies, both dressed in matching gray onesies, their tiny faces scrunched in distress. Twins, maybe 4 months old. "Theirs?" "Yes." "And the people who shot you?" His jaw tightened. "Coming back." That sent ice through her veins. Ava looked around the empty lot, suddenly aware of how exposed they were. How deliberate this location felt. How the warehouse had no cameras, no witnesses, no reason for anyone to be here at midnight. This wasn't random violence. This was an execution that hadn't finished. "Can you walk?" she asked.
"Barely."
"My car's around front. We get you in, we get the babies warm, we get somewhere safe. You good with that?" He studied her face like he was trying to understand why she hadn't run yet. Like he was searching for the angle, the trap, the betrayal that must be coming. Finally, he nodded. Ava grabbed the infant carriers, the baby's weight almost nothing in her hands, and helped him to his feet. He bit back a scream as his wound pulled, but he stayed upright, one hand pressed against the SUV for balance. "What's in Queens?" he asked as they started moving. "My apartment. It's small, it's a 4th-floor walk-up, and it's definitely not equipped for this." She glanced at him. "But it's off-grid enough that whoever did this won't find it tonight." "You're making a mistake." "Probably," Ava said. "But those babies didn't ask for any of this." They made it to her Civic, just as headlights appeared in the distance. The stairs nearly killed him. Ava's apartment was on the 4th floor of a pre-war building in Astoria, the kind of place where the radiators clanked like percussion instruments, and the hallway smelled perpetually of someone's grandmother's cooking. She'd chosen it because the rent was almost affordable, and the neighbors minded their own business. Tonight, she was grateful for both. She carried the twins in their carriers, one in each hand, while the man dragged himself up the stairs using the railing. Blood dripped from his suit jacket, leaving a trail she'd have to clean before morning. Every few steps he'd pause, breathing hard, his face grey in the fluorescent stairwell lighting. "Almost there," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was reassuring him or herself. 4th floor, door 4C. Ava fumbled with her keys while balancing the carriers, finally shouldering the door open into her tiny studio. She set the babies down on her futon and turned back to help him inside. He collapsed the moment he crossed the threshold. Okay, stay with me. Ava locked the door, threw the deadbolt, and dragged her kitchen table closer to where he'd fallen. She'd need space to work. Her mind shifted into the cold, clinical mode she thought she'd left behind when she quit the ambulance. The babies were crying again. She checked them first, both conscious, both responsive, both freezing. She cranked the radiator, grabbed every blanket she owned, and wrapped them carefully, checking their breathing. They'd hold for a few minutes. Then she turned to him. I need to remove your jacket and shirt. This is going to hurt. He nodded, teeth clenched, and let her strip away the blood-soaked clothing. The wound looked worse in proper light. The bullet had torn through muscle and possibly nicked his liver. He needed a surgeon, a hospital, a trauma team. Instead, he had her. Ava grabbed her first aid kit from under the sink, the professional one she'd kept from her EMT days, the one she'd sworn she'd never need again.
Gauze, antiseptic, sutures, local anesthetic that was probably expired. This is insane, she muttered, laying out supplies on a clean towel. You need a hospital. No. You could die. I will die if you take me to a hospital. His eyes met hers, completely lucid despite the blood loss. They have people everywhere. Emergency rooms, police stations. Anywhere I'd go for help. Who's they? People you don't want to know about. Ava's hands paused over the antiseptic. Are you a criminal? Does it matter? Yeah, it kind of does. He was quiet for a moment, studying her face the way he had outside. Then, I used to be. I've been trying to get out. They don't like that. And the twins? Something softened in his expression, just barely. My sons. Their mother died 6 months ago. Childbirth complications. His voice cracked on the last word. I'm all they have. Ava looked at the babies, now quiet under their blankets, their small chests rising and falling steadily. Then back at this man bleeding out on her floor, this stranger who'd pointed a gun at her and was now trusting her with his life. She was going to regret this. She was absolutely, certainly going to regret this. Okay, she said, reaching for the sutures. But if you die on my floor, I'm telling the police everything. Fair enough. The wound took 47 minutes to clean and close. He passed out twice. Ava worked through both times, her hands steady, her mind blank except for the mechanical steps of stopping bleeding, irrigating tissue, placing stitches. By the time she finished, dawn was bleeding pink through her window. And someone was watching her building from across the street. Ava saw them when she went to close the blinds. 2 men in a dark sedan parked across from her building, engine running, exhaust curling in the December morning air. They weren't hiding. They weren't pretending to be anything other than what they were. Watchers. Her stomach dropped. She stepped back from the window carefully, keeping her movements casual, and turned to find the man awake on her floor, watching her with eyes that had already figured out what she'd seen. How many? He asked quietly. 2, maybe more in the area. He tried to sit up and failed, pain whitening his face. They'll wait until full daylight. Too many witnesses right now. Early morning dog walkers, people heading to work. He paused, breathing through the pain. You should leave. Take your car and go. They don't know who you are yet. And you? I'll be gone before they come up. Ava looked at him, barely able to sit, fresh sutures holding his insides together, 2 infant sons sleeping in blankets on her futon, and almost laughed at the absurdity. You can't even stand. Where exactly are you going to go? Not your problem. It became my problem the moment I didn't run. She moved to the twins, checking their breathing again, their temperature,
their color. Both were sleeping peacefully now, warm and fed. She'd given them formula from the diaper bag, tested carefully in case it had been tampered with. It seemed clean. What are their names? The question seemed to catch him off guard. He was quiet for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Kai and Ryu, he finally said. Kai's the older twin, by 4 minutes. How do you tell them apart? Kai has a birthmark, small, behind his left ear. Ava studied the sleeping babies. Identical faces, identical peaceful expressions. 4 months old and already caught in whatever nightmare their father had tried to escape. My name's Ava, she said, and you're going to tell me yours, because if I'm harboring you in my apartment, I deserve to know who I'm risking my life for. He hesitated, then, Daniel Park. Okay, Daniel Park. She grabbed her phone. I'm calling in sick to my Grubhub shift. Then we're figuring out how to keep you alive long enough for those stitches to hold. And then you're going to tell me everything. Everything is dangerous. I'm already harboring a gunshot victim and his infant twins while armed men watch my building. I think we're past dangerous. A ghost of something, respect maybe, or dark humor, crossed his face. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who'd run. I should have. Ava looked out the window again. The sedan was still there. Why didn't they just kill you at the warehouse? Why shoot and leave? Because they wanted me to suffer, to know it was coming. His voice went cold, and because they wanted me to watch my sons die first. The words hit her like a physical blow. She looked at Kai and Ryu, these tiny, innocent lives that someone had tried to erase. Who are you? She asked quietly. Really? Daniel met her eyes. My family controls shipping routes through the port of New York and New Jersey. Legitimate businesses up front, other things behind them. I was supposed to take over when my father died. He paused. I refused, tried to go legitimate. They don't forgive that. They being my brother. Ava's blood ran cold. This wasn't gang violence or random crime. This was family. Blood turning against blood. Your brother did this? Daniel's silence was answer enough. Outside, the sun continued rising over Queens. The watchers continued watching. And somewhere in the city, someone was deciding when to make their next move. The twins stopped breathing at 4:47 p.m. Ava had fed them on schedule, formula from the diaper bag Daniel had brought, measured carefully, tested on her own tongue first,
the way she'd tested everything since they'd arrived. Both babies had eaten normally, burped, settled into sleep. Then Kai started seizing. "Daniel!" Ava's scream brought him stumbling from the bathroom where he'd been trying to clean his wound. He nearly collapsed crossing the tiny studio, but one look at his son's convulsing body
Straightened him like electricity. What happened? I don't know, he just... Ryu started seizing before she finished the sentence. Both twins, simultaneously, their small bodies rigid, lips turning blue, breathing strangled and wrong. Daniel grabbed the formula bottle with shaking hands, smelled it, then hurled it against the wall. Poison. Delayed action. They knew I'd take it from the SUV. Ava's mind went into emergency mode. No time for hospitals. No time for anything except the next 60 seconds. Kitchen floor, now! She grabbed both babies, laying them on clean towels she'd already spread. Her hands moved on autopsy, checking airways, positioning heads, preparing for the procedure that could save them or kill them faster. Gastric lavage, stomach flushing. She'd done it twice in her EMT career, both times with adult overdose patients, both times in controlled hospital environments with proper equipment. Now she had 2 infants, expired supplies, and a man screaming silently behind her. I need the first aid kit. Saline. Every clean towel you can find. Her voice was ice calm, a stranger's voice. And I need you to hold Ryu's head exactly how I show you. Daniel moved, training or instinct overriding his panic. His hands, steady despite everything, cradled his son's head with infinite gentleness. Ava worked on Kai first. Pediatric NG tube inserted through the nose down into the stomach. Her hands didn't shake, couldn't shake. She irrigated with saline, withdrew the contaminated stomach contents, repeated the process until the fluid ran clear. Kai gasped, coughed, started breathing again. 15 seconds to switch positions. 15 seconds when Ryu's lips were nearly purple. Stay with me, baby. Stay with me. The second procedure felt like it took hours. Ryu was smaller, his airway more delicate, his body weaker. The poison had hit him harder, or he'd consumed more, or his system was just more vulnerable. Ava irrigated, withdrew, repeated. Nothing. Come on, come on. She started chest compressions, her fingers barely spanning the tiny chest. 1 breath. 2. You don't get to die. You hear me? You don't get to die in my kitchen. Daniel made a sound like something breaking. Breathe! Ava compressed again. Once more. Breathe, damn you! Ryu coughed, then gasped, then screamed with the full-throated fury of a baby who'd been dragged back from the edge. Ava collapsed backward, her hands trembling now that the crisis had passed, adrenaline draining from her system like water. Both twins were crying, the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. When she looked up, Daniel was crying too. Silently, tears streaming down his face, his hand pressed against his mouth as he watched his sons breathe. They knew, he said finally. They knew I'd grab the diaper bag. Knew I'd use that formula. His voice broke. They tried to poison my children. Ava met his eyes. She saw rage there. And something else. Something cold and final settling into
place. Your brother, she said, not a question. My brother. Tell me everything, Ava said quietly. No more secrets. Not if I'm keeping these babies alive. So he did. And what she learned made the men watching outside seem like the least of their problems. My name isn't Daniel Park, he said. It's Daniel Park Kim. The Kim part matters. Ava sat on the floor across from him, the twins sleeping peacefully between them, finally stable after the nightmare of the afternoon. Outside, the winter sun was setting over Queens, painting her apartment in shades of orange and red. Kim as in? The Kim family, East Coast operations. My father built the network 40 years ago when he immigrated from Busan. Started with a single shipping container business in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Daniel stared at his sons, his voice distant. Now we move everything through the port of New York and New Jersey. Legitimate cargo. And other things. What other things? Pharmaceuticals the FDA hasn't approved. Electronics with interesting surveillance capabilities. Currency that doesn't want to be traced. He paused. And people who need to disappear, one way or another. Ava's stomach turned. Human trafficking? No, never. His voice hardened. That was my father's one absolute line. We move money, goods, information, but we don't trade in lives. He looked at her. My brother disagreed. Thought we were leaving profit on the table. The pieces started clicking together. Your father died. You were supposed to take over. 8 months ago. Heart attack, supposedly. I found out 6 months ago it was ricin poisoning. Slow acting, untraceable unless you know what to look for. Daniel's jaw clenched. Marcus did it, my younger brother. He wanted control. So you refused to take over. I tried to dismantle it. Told our counsel I was going legitimate, that I'd transition the shipping business to legal operations only, that anyone who wanted out had 6 months to find new arrangements. He touched Kai's sleeping hand with infinite gentleness. Their mother, Min Ji, she died during the emergency C-section. Complications, they said, but I found the medical records. Someone had tampered with her medications. Ava felt sick. Your brother killed her too. To motivate me, to remind me what happens when you turn your back on family. Daniel's voice was hollow. Marcus took control 3 months ago. The council backed him, said I was weak, that family legacy demanded loyalty. And the twins? Heirs, direct bloodline. As long as they're alive, I have a legitimate claim. He met her eyes. Marcus needs them gone, needs me gone. Then he's unchallenged. So last night was an execution. He invited me to a negotiation at the warehouse, said he wanted to make peace. Daniel laughed bitterly. I knew it was a trap, but I thought maybe he'd let the boys live, that blood still meant something. But you ordered food. I didn't.
Understanding dawned in his eyes. You were the bait. Someone who'd find me, call police, create witnesses, make it look like a robbery gone wrong instead of an execution. Ava's hands went cold.
They used me.
And I ruined their plan by not being dead yet. He looked at her with something like awe. You should have run. Should have called 911 and disappeared.
Why didn't you want police?
Because Marcus owns them. Not all of them, but enough. First responders, dispatchers, at least 3 homicide detectives I know about. He gestured to his wound. I show up at any ER in the 5 boroughs. I'm dead within an hour. So what do we do? We? Daniel stared at her. You've done enough. More than enough. You saved my life. Saved my son's twice. His voice dropped. But this ends badly, Ava. There's no version where Marcus just lets this go. Then we make a version, Ava said quietly. Because those babies deserve better than being hunted by their own uncle. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. She looked at Kai and Ryu, these tiny lives she'd fought to save. Your brother made this personal when he poisoned them. So how do we stop him? Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then, we'd need evidence. Proof of everything. And we'd need to go directly to the council. Can they overrule him? If we can prove he's violated the family codes, maybe. He met her eyes. But getting to them means going through every soldier Marcus controls. And he controls a lot. Outside, night fell over Queens. The Watcher's sedan was still there. And somewhere across the river in Manhattan, Marcus Park Kim was planning his next move. The betrayal had started with love. Daniel told her the story while they packed, grabbing only essentials, preparing to move before the Watchers decided waiting was over. The twins slept in their carriers, oblivious to the danger circling closer. Marcus was 7 when our mother died, Daniel said, folding a blanket with mechanical precision. Cancer. I was 11. Our father buried himself in work, built the empire bigger, colder. Marcus needed someone to look up to. You, Ava guessed. Me. I was supposed to be the strong one, the heir, the one who'd protect him from everything. His hands stilled on the blanket. I taught him to fight, taught him the business, taught him that family meant everything, that blood was the only Asian you could trust in this world. When did it change? College. I went to NYU, studied business, legitimately. Marcus went to Columbia, got involved with some Wall Street types, learned how much money real power could generate. Daniel's voice went flat. He came back with ideas. Expansion, new revenue streams, things father would never touch. Human trafficking. Girls from Eastern Europe, boys from Central America. A pipeline that would generate millions monthly. Daniel's jaw clenched. I walked in on him presenting it to father. This whole PowerPoint presentation like he was pitching a startup. What did your father do? Beat him unconscious. Put him in the hospital for a week. The memory clearly still haunted Daniel. Told him he was no son of his if he ever mentioned it again. That we had lines we didn't cross. That money meant nothing if you had to become a monster to get it. Ava watched his face. But you defended him. I was an idiot. I thought father was too harsh, that Marcus was young, that he'd learn. I convinced father to give him another chance, to let him work in the legitimate businesses, prove himself. Daniel's voice broke. Marcus smiled, apologized, said he understood now. But he didn't. He spent the next 3 years building his own network. Quiet, under the surface. Turned father's people against him one by one. Made promises, offered power, showed them how much money they were leaving on the table. Daniel grabbed the diaper bag, checking supplies. By the time I figured it out, half the organization was loyal to Marcus, not father. And then your father died. ricin in his medication. Symptoms looked like natural heart failure. I only found out because Min Ji was suspicious, had samples tested privately. He looked at the sleeping twins. She died a week later. Childbirth complications. The pieces fell into a horrifying picture. A brother who'd learned from the best, who'd been taught that family was everything, and who'd twisted that lesson into something monstrous. "You could have fought him," Ava said quietly. "Taken revenge." With what? Half the organization backed him. The council was split, and I had 2 newborn sons who needed me alive more than they needed me avenged. His voice hardened. But I tried anyway. Tried to expose him. Prove he'd killed father and Min Ji. What happened? Marcus had already rewritten the narrative. Make me look paranoid, grief-stricken, unstable. By the time I realized he'd outplayed me, I had maybe a dozen people I could trust. He met her eyes. So I did the only thing I could. I told him I'd walk away, take my sons, disappear, let him have the empire. He said no. He said family is everything, that I taught him that. Daniel's laugh was bitter. Said he couldn't let me live because I'd always be a threat. And the twins, they represented the old guard, the legitimate bloodline. As long as they existed, his claim was weak. So he lured you to the warehouse, told me we'd negotiate terms, but he let me go if I signed papers transferring everything. Daniel touched Ryu's sleeping face. I knew it was a trap, but I hoped maybe he'd remember when we were kids, when I'd protected him from bullies, when I'd taken beatings meant for him, when he'd promised me we'd always be brothers. But he remembered something else. He remembered I taught him that family means everything, Daniel said quietly. And in his mind, I became a traitor the moment I tried to walk away. Outside, tires screeched. The watchers were moving.
"Back door, now!" Daniel grabbed both car seats while Ava stuffed the diaper bag with supplies. Heavy footsteps echoed in the stairwell. Multiple men, moving fast, no longer bothering with stealth. They'd waited long enough. Ava's apartment had one advantage, the building's ancient fire escape. She threw open the window facing the alley, frigid December air rushing in, and helped Daniel maneuver the twins through. His wound was bleeding again, dark spots spreading across his shirt, but he moved anyway. "You first," he insisted. No time to argue. Ava climbed through, metal freezing beneath her hands, and took the first carrier, then the second. Then Daniel, who barely fit through the frame, who left bloody handprints on the windowsill. Behind them, her apartment doors splintered open. They descended the fire escape in controlled falling, metal clanging beneath their feet, the twins miraculously quiet, like they understood survival meant silence. 4th floor. 3rd. 2nd. Shouts above, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. Ground level. Ava's Honda was parked 2 blocks away. Might as well have been 2 miles. They ran anyway, Daniel staggering, Ava carrying both twins, their breath clouding in the winter air. They made it 1 block before the sedan cut them off. Ava reversed direction, cutting through a bodega's narrow side alley, the owner shouting something in Spanish that she didn't process. Daniel was falling behind, his breathing ragged, his face gray. "Keep going," he gasped. "Get to the car. Address in my phone. Safe house in Red Hook." "Not without you. Ava!" She grabbed his arm, practically dragging him forward. They emerged onto Ditmars Boulevard, traffic and pedestrians and blessed witnesses everywhere. The men pursuing them slowed, couldn't risk open violence with this many eyes, but they didn't stop. Ava's Honda appeared like salvation. She threw the carriers in back, snapped them into the bases she'd installed that morning, and shoved Daniel into the passenger seat. He was unconscious before she started the engine. Red Hook was 40 minutes in traffic. She made it in 25, running lights, weaving through lanes, checking mirrors constantly for pursuit. The safe house address led to a renovated warehouse near the cruise terminals, the kind of place that cost millions now, but had been crack dens in the 90s. Daniel stirred as she parked. Passcode 7734, penthouse level. The building was eerily empty. Their footsteps echoed in the marble lobby. No doorman, no security desk, just a private elevator that required the code. 7th floor. The doors opened into a sprawling loft, exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking New York Harbor, furniture that cost more than Ava's annual salary, and signs of recent violence. Furniture overturned, glass shattered, bullet holes in the brick walls. This was compromised, Ava
whispered. When?
Yesterday, before the warehouse.
Daniel steadied himself against the wall. Marcus moved faster than I thought. I have 2 other locations. Both burned.
So where?
Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer.
Ava Collins?
The voice was smooth, educated, with the same faint Korean accent as Daniel's.
We haven't been introduced. I'm Marcus.
Her blood turned to ice.
How did you?
I've known about you since 11:52 last night, the moment you decided to play hero. She could hear the smile in his voice. You've made this harder than it needed to be, but there's still a way out.
I'm listening.
Give me my brother and my nephews. Walk away. I'll wire you $1 million, and you'll never hear from any of us again.
And if I don't?
Then you die too, and you don't even know why. Marcus paused. You have 12 hours to decide. After that, there's nowhere in the 5 boroughs I won't find you. The line went dead. Daniel had heard everything. You met her eyes, and in them she saw complete understanding of what she'd stepped into. No safe houses left, no escape routes, no good options remaining.
The council, Ava said. It's the only play we have left.
The council met in a restaurant. Not just any restaurant. Hangawi, a Korean fine dining establishment in Midtown Manhattan, where reservations required 3 months' notice, and removing your shoes at the door was mandatory. The kind of place where tech executives and UN diplomats negotiated deals over $200 tasting menus. Also, apparently, where the criminal elite decided who lived and died. They own the top floor, Daniel explained, as Ava drove them across the Queensboro Bridge at 2 a.m. Soundproofed, swept for surveillance weekly. The council meets there twice monthly. Emergency sessions require unanimous agreement. And you can get us in. I'm still technically a member, by blood if nothing else. You checked his wound, which Ava had restitched during a frantic hour at the Red Hook safe house. But Marcus will be there, and his people.
Then we bring proof.
Ava gestured to the laptop bag beside Daniel's feet.
You said you had evidence.
Financial records. Proof Marcus embezzled funds. Proof he ordered the hit on father. Daniel's voice was hollow.
Proof he's been running human trafficking operations for 2 years.
Exactly what father beat him for suggesting.
Will it be enough?
If we can present it before he kills us, maybe. They parked 3 blocks away. Daniel changed into a suit, bloodstained but still carrying the authority of expensive tailoring. Ava wore the only professional outfit she owned, a blazer and slacks she'd bought for EMT job interviews. She carried the twins in their carriers. Hangawi's front door was locked, but Daniel had keys. They climbed the stairs, regular stairs this time, not a desperate fire escape, to the 4th floor, where soft light glowed beneath an unmarked door.
Daniel paused, his hand on the handle. Last chance. You can still walk away. Open the door. 8 people sat around a low table in the traditional Korean style, shoes abandoned at the entrance, feet tucked beneath them on cushions. All Korean, all over 50. All watching the door with expressions ranging from surprise to calculation to naked hostility. Marcus sat at the table's head. He was younger than Ava expected, maybe 30, handsome in the way of men who'd never known hardship, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her car. When he smiled, she saw Daniel's features twisted into something colder. "Brother," Marcus said pleasantly, "you're bleeding on their floor." "Emergency session." Daniel's voice was steady despite his pallor. "I invoke blood right under the Founder's Law." An elderly woman to Marcus's left, elegant, severe, with silver hair pulled into a tight bun, leaned forward. "You abandoned that right when you tried to dissolve the family businesses." "I invoke it anyway, Auntie." Daniel met her eyes. "You taught me the old laws. They supersede council votes. Blood right means I get to speak. You have to listen." The woman's expression didn't change, but she nodded fractionally. Marcus's smile sharpened. "And her?" He gestured to Ava. "She's not family." "She saved my life, saved Kai and Ryu's lives. That makes her family by deed, if not blood." Daniel set the laptop on the table. "I have evidence. Everything Marcus has done, everything he's hidden from you." "Careful, brother." Marcus's voice could have frozen fire. "Accusations require proof." "I have proof." For the first time, uncertainty crossed Marcus's face. Daniel opened the laptop, turned it toward the council, and began showing them exactly what his brother had become. Financial records showing millions diverted from legitimate businesses into trafficking operations. Emails coordinating shipments of merchandise, code for human cargo. Text messages to the men who'd killed their father, who'd killed Minji, who'd tried to kill Daniel and the twins. The council watched in silence, and when Daniel finished, the elderly woman turned to Marcus. "Explain," she said softly. "Now." Marcus didn't deny it. That was the thing that surprised Ava most. He simply sat back, smiled that cold smile, and shrugged. "Everything Daniel showed you is true," he said calmly. "I did kill father. I did expand our operations into new markets. I did everything necessary to make this family powerful instead of comfortable." The council members exchanged glances. The elderly woman, Aunt Hae-won, Daniel had whispered, kept her expression neutral. "You violated the Founder's Law," she said. "Your father's explicit prohibition." "My father was weak." Marcus's voice cut like a blade. "He built an empire, then refused to use it. Left billions on the table because of outdated morality. The world changed. He didn't."
"So you poisoned him?" Daniel's voice shook. "Murdered Minji. Tried to murder your own nephews."
"Family is everything, brother. You taught me that."
Marcus leaned forward. "But you forgot the second part. Family demands loyalty. You tried to dismantle everything father built. That's the real betrayal." "I tried to go legitimate."
"You tried to destroy us."
For the first time, Marcus's composure cracked.
"You would have left hundreds of people without income, without protection, without purpose, all because you got squeamish about how the money's made."
"Children, Marcus. You're trafficking children."
"I'm trafficking opportunity.
Those kids were dying in Eastern European orphanages, starving in Salvadoran slums. I moved them to families who pay premium prices for exploitation. Aunt Haewon's voice was quiet, but it silenced Marcus immediately. You're describing exploitation. The room went still. The Founder's Law is clear, she continued. We do not trade in lives. Your father made that absolute. She looked around the table. Marcus Park Kim has violated our most sacred prohibition. The punishment is exile. You can't, Marcus started. Or death. Aunt Haewon's eyes were ancient and cold. Council votes now. Of the 7 other members, 5 raised their hands for exile. Marcus's face went white with rage. This isn't over. It is. Aunt Haewon turned to Daniel. You are the eldest legitimate heir. Do you accept leadership? Daniel looked at his sons, sleeping peacefully despite everything. Then at Ava, who'd risked her life for strangers. Finally at the wound in his side that was still bleeding. No, he said quietly. Shock rippled through the room. Daniel, Aunt Haewon began. I meant what I said. I'm going legitimate. The shipping business, the warehouses, the real estate, all of it transitions to legal operations. Anyone who wants out of the other activities has 6 months to restructure or leave. He met her eyes. But I'll do it properly this time, with council oversight, with protection for everyone who depends on family income. And who leads during this transition? Another council member asked. Daniel looked at Aunt Haewon. You. Like you should have all along. The old woman studied him for a long moment. Then, impossibly, she smiled. Your father would be proud, she said softly. Very well. 6-month transition. Full council oversight. She turned to Marcus. You have 24 hours to leave New York. After that, family protection is revoked. Marcus stood, his chair scraping loudly. He looked at Daniel with pure hatred. This isn't over, brother. Yes, Daniel said tiredly. It is. They watched Marcus leave. Then the other council members filed out, until only Aunt Haewon remained. The girl, she said, nodding at Ava. She stays with you? Daniel looked at Ava, question in his eyes. Ava looked at Kai and Ryu, these twins she'd saved twice, these babies who'd become something like hers in
3 impossible days.
Yeah, she said. I stay. And Haewon smiled. Good. They need a mother. And you. She looked at Ava with eyes that saw everything. You need a purpose. She left them there, Daniel, Ava, and the twins who'd survived everything. Outside, dawn broke over Manhattan. The city continued its endless rhythm. And somewhere in Queens, Ava's apartment sat empty, her delivery bag abandoned, her old life over. She'd saved a stranger and his sons. She'd walked into a criminal empire's heart. She'd helped bring down a killer, and now, impossibly, she had a family. Not the one she'd planned, but maybe the one she'd needed all along. Daniel reached for her hand. Ava took it. And together they walked
into whatever came next.